now involved in clearing up the roads and basic infrastructure in order to restore normalcy. Listen in to what Trump had to say.
I want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. Some rebels within, but either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Of course, we've heard what Donald Trump has had to say. He said that the ceasefire is in place. This comes amid reports of explosions taking place in the Gaza Strip, as well as executions by Hamas leaders of opposing faction members, Palestinian factions within the Gaza Strip itself. Meanwhile, Hamas claims that its leaders were not involved in the shootings and the executions that have taken place, a claim that has been backed by US President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the United Nations is interested in rebuilding the Gaza Strip. Of course, it has been reduced to rubble after Israeli bombardment for 2 years. Meanwhile, as far as the hostages' bodies are concerned, Hamas maintains that it requires heavy equipment and more time in order to retrieve the rest of the bodies from the rubble and the tunnels as well. Israel, meanwhile, has stated that time is running out and Hamas must adhere to its end of the deal, since Israel has upheld its end of the bargain as well. Meanwhile, Turkey has come out and criticized Israel, stating that it would use the fact that the bodies of the dead captives were not handed back as a pretext to invade the Gaza Strip once again. Meanwhile, the United States has made it very clear that its troops will be on the ground monitoring the entire reconstruction process, and it will not be involved. Rather, it will leave it to local actors to take it forward from here. This is the latest that we're tracking from the Middle East. Of course, a lot of high-octane developments post the 20-point peace plan, the first part of which has been agreed upon in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. Negotiations went on for about a week before the landmark deal was reached in the Middle East, which resulted in a hostage prisoner exchange. 20 live hostages were returned back to Israel, and Israel meanwhile released 2,000 Palestinian prisoners to the West Bank and the Gaza Strip as well. There are, of course, considerations regarding post-war reconstruction that, of course, if the ceasefire continues to hold, there are reports of bombardments taking place, explosions happening in the Gaza Strip itself. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakar Ji, international affairs expert and a strategic affairs expert as well from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. I wanted to understand from you what you make of Donald Trump's statements that have come out, because we've recently seen some rather spine-chilling visuals of executions taking place in the Gaza Strip itself. Israel claims that these are Hamas leaders that are executing Palestinian factions that are opposing them. Hamas has denied these claims. Now Donald Trump coming out and backing what Hamas has stated.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for getting me for your morning show. A couple of points in the question which you have raised. First and foremost thing, the objective and the vision that Donald Trump has in 20-point security proposal or the plan. This is, I'm talking about ceasefire in Gaza Strip. You see, while Donald Trump may be very, very objective and very purposeful in the peace proposal, but things are not so simple and hunky-dory on the ground. And ever since this point came up and the proposal was put into effect, I, for one, have been raising the issue, will Hamas surrender, or will they disarm themselves on their own? Or is there a neutral force to ensure? The first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is that whenever a situation like this crops up at international level, there is requirement of a neutral force to ensure implementation of the plan. Which is that neutral force? Is Egypt going to sit in Cairo and ensure? Or is Turkey going to ensure the same thing? Or Qatar is going to do it? So therefore, the dire need on the ground is that some kind of a mutually accepted neutral force, which is respected by both Hamas and Israelis, should be in place before you start implementing anything. Second thing, rather than going ahead with the ceasefire and the agreement which has been reached, Hamas has taken resort to this punitive. This is called inhuman. There is no place for killing of people, innocent people, on this manner, and that too in camp. It is being publicized. So this is worse than, I would say, what one had witnessed during the ISIS and the mayhem in broad daylight. This is the spine-chilling kind of a narrative which is being painted. So therefore, to say that the deal is still on, I think one has to have little caveat in the proposal. How much are you going to accept? Suppose the Hamas is going to carry out similar kind of broad daylight killing. Will Donald Trump continue to accept the same thing? It has to have some kind of a punitive measure. So that neutral force that I'm talking of is to be given the Charter 7, that is the power to execute military action in order to ensure peace under the UN banner or the UN flag. Third point that comes to my mind is that it's very easy for Donald Trump to say that the peace plan is on. I'm very, very pragmatic, Pia. I don't see any peace actually at the end of the tunnel. There is no light at the end of the tunnel until unless all the stakeholders, when the ceasefire was under discussion, when the stakeholders who were involved in the entire piece, Netanyahu was not present, Hamas representative was not there. So how do you make a peace deal when two primary stakeholders are absent from the talk? Does it have any meaning and substance? By cooking up castles in the dream and building pictures, imaginative picture doesn't take you to a peace, to bring peace to a war-torn city or the place. So therefore, I would only urge and recommend to the people who matter, including Donald Trump, to be more pragmatic, take all the stakeholders on board, and call out the kind of reprisals or the retributions being committed by Hamas for whatever reason they may have. Bring them back. There will be disruptions. There will be break in the ceasefire and the commitment, but still bring people back to the talking table. Get Netanyahu and Hamas together on the table and let them talk one-on-one. Because without, in absence of any of the stakeholders, having any kind of peace proposal is meaningless. Back to you.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates. Viewers, we're shifting our focus away from the Middle East towards the war in Europe. US President Donald Trump has now strongly denied claims that he proposed handing over the Donbas region to Russia during peace talks. Now, in a recent statement, Trump has emphasized that the issue was never raised in discussions with Ukraine, and he instead focused on maintaining a ceasefire and halting violence in the front lines. Additionally, the US president has clarified that any territorial arrangements in the region would be determined later based on the situation on the ground. Listen in.
Cut the way it is. It's cut up right now. I think 78% of the land is already taken by Russia. You leave it the way it is right now. They can negotiate something later on down the line. But I said, cut and stop at the battle line, go home, stop fighting, stop killing people. The rest is very tough to negotiate. If you're going to say, you take this, we take that, there's so many different permutations. So what I say is they should stop right now at the battle lines, go home.
Now, the claims originated from reports that earlier stated that Trump pressurized Ukrainian President Zelensky to accept Russia's demands. Trump has since rejected all of this, asserting that no such negotiations occurred. But he did, in the meantime, acknowledge that Russia already controls parts of the Donbas territory, 78% to be specific. He has stressed that any peace agreements should avoid major territorial concessions from Moscow. Now, moving on to a related issue, Ukrainian President Zelensky had requested the supply of long-range Tomahawk missiles. However, the discussion proved to be rather difficult for him, with Trump now ruling out the possibility of providing the weapons. This caused the Ukrainian delegation to leave the meeting disappointed. And more recently, US Vice President J.D. Vance has also confirmed that Trump has not yet decided whether to supply the Tomahawks to Ukraine or not. Vance has explained that the US president's focus remains on US national security and the need to prioritize America's own military needs. Vance has also clarified that Trump's priority is not extraditing critical weaponry to Europe unless it serves the United States' best interest. Take a look.
Well, I mean, the president right now is certainly hearing that request from the Ukrainians. We know that it's something that they want. That's something the president's going to ultimately decide, but he has not yet made the decision to give tomahawks to Ukraine. Well, look, the president of the United States is trying to ensure that America's security is taken care of first, and obviously that means that we need to have the critical weapon systems for our own military, for our own troops. So that's what the president is focused on. And as with all the decisions that he's made related to Russia to Ukraine, he's trying to bring peace because he thinks that's what's in America's best interest. If he thinks it's in America's best interest to sell additional weapons to Europe, he will do that. But right now, he hasn't made that decision with regards to tomahawks. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, of course, we heard what Vance had to say. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, President of IDC Russia and Director of WHD International Board. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. At the outset, it's very obvious that Donald Trump is now emphasizing reaching a ceasefire and then moving on to territorial decisions. I wanted to understand from you, would Russia then accept a ceasefire without any sort of territorial settlement?
Thank you so much for invitation for discussion. First of all, I want to start my explanation of position of the vision of our national leader and all our nations, that is a choice of nations. This is not choice of Donald Trump or somebody else. It's not choice of any politician at all. Which land will be rejoined to Russia, which land will be not rejoined. Because first of all, we can see the eastern part of Ukraine is a Russian-speaking population. All this population, they belong to Russian world, belong to our civilization. We should understand. Is it not we are taking territory without people? People, they want, they will, their choice to come to our Russian world, to our civilization, to Russian support. They are very suffering, much suffering because of the Mr. Zelensky aggression. That is the main point. How Donald Trump or somebody else can decide it? It's not his choice at all. It's a choice of nation. That is most important. And nobody can change this will, this choice, because it's the will of the hearts of the people. We cannot delay these people. Look to the situation in the world. We have a humanitarian catastrophe in the different part of the world. For example, Palestine, they're suffering because of the aggression from Israel. And you see right now a movement inside Europe, inside America. They try to support Israel. Why? Because they want to support humanity, human values. We are not animals. We are human beings. That's why we should support justice. We should support spirituality. We should support like real traditional values. And Donald Trump cannot destroy this because he's a believer, first of all, and he also came to again to the White House to support traditional value. That's why I completely believe that slowly he will come to the right point of his vision.
And news also coming in that Donald Trump reportedly ruled out the possibility of providing Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine at this stage. We have seen certain warnings being given by Kremlin that if the US went ahead with Zelensky's appeal, that would totally destroy US-Russia relations. Then is this move by the Trump administration a shift in US policy? And if so, what has prompted this?
We can see that inside his heart, Donald Trump is pure peacemaker. His intentions really to support peace. He already did a lot of very successful peace deals, even with Pakistan and India. But regarding the conflict Russia with Ukraine is very deep conflict. It's conflict actually of East and West. It's a conflict of global society, like some kind of sectarian thinking and traditional traditional world. That's why right now we can see big pressure under the Donald Trump, and that's why he's not so much independent. But we still have possibilities. We have some hope, because even famous prophet Edgar Casey, who was born in America, we always call him sleeping prophet, because he always received all his vision about future in the dreams. And he predict friendship between Russia and America. He predict that this friendship between Russia and America will change the policy and will come to the golden age of humanity. I completely believe that is only time, little time. We should wait, and then we'll see the fruits, the results, the real friendship and real peacemaking deal, which will be initiated by Donald Trump himself.
Indeed, you did point towards India and Pakistan. The situation there was quite different, I must point out. It was the Pakistanis that approached the Indian DGMO, but the situation between Russia and Ukraine is different as well. So I wanted to understand from you, what are your expectations from the Trump-Putin meeting that is likely to take place in Budapest very soon? We've seen the telephonic conversation. It was described as very productive by the Kremlin as well.
Yes, very true. It's very productive. Even the city, the town which was chosen to this meeting, all this information give to us very positive hopes and expectations. Why? Because we can see that right now all Europe countries, they are still in some inertial process to hate Russia, without any reasons at all. It's just a jealousy. You should understand. It's just a jealousy. Of course, we're a big country. We support human values. We always support small nations. We always pray only justice. That is in our blood, in our history. And some of European politicians, they are so much jealous. But right now, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, they already met. See the nature, the character of our national leader. Last time he came even to America. He came to Alaska to start this peacemaking dialogue. How much he dedicated to his nation, how much he dedicated to the peace, without any phobia, without any fears. He came to America to start to discuss, because even a lot of advisors, they suggest that he should not go to America, but our national leader, Vladimir Putin, is so brave, so dedicated to this peacemaking dialogue. He came. And right now, Budapest, even more interesting deal we can see, because we can start with transformation of the vision. We should delay this mood of enmity between Europe and Russia, between Russia and America, between East and West. And everything is possible. Only, I believe, we depends from our prayers. We should pray to God, and spiritual energy can change the hearts of all politicians, and spiritual energy can change all situations. I'm completely believer that God himself can negotiate with peace.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. I'd also like to rope in Major General Sudhakarji, who's been waiting rather patiently into this particular discussion. We had earlier seen a statement by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He pointed to the landmark deal in the Middle East. He said that the same approach that helped curb conflict in the Middle East, that resulted in the ceasefire agreement, could work in Ukraine's favor as well. But we do know that the situation between Russia and Ukraine is very, very different. Russia has one of the world's most powerful militaries. It's a nuclear-armed country as well. So can the same approach really be used? And if not, what then should the Trump administration really take into consideration?
Pia, I'm very thankful to you for having brought me in onto the topic on Russia-Ukraine war. I wish the distinguished guest from Russia also was there. I wanted to clarify one issue because this rumor is spreading, which has been initiated and triggered, or rather triggered by Donald Trump, that he has brought about ceasefire in the conflict between India and Pakistan between 7th to 10th of May 2025. I wish to clarify, I hope he is on the listening. Even if he is not, we need to be very loud and clear that he may have spoken to Pakistani authorities on the conflict between 7th and 10th of May 2025, but he never spoke to any authority, be it the Prime Minister, be it the Minister of External Affairs or the NSA. None of his officials, including J.D. Vance, they never spoke about mediation. And also, America should be very clear. It is a superpower, still reigning superpower of the world. They must know what has happened in Shimla Agreement. They must understand Pakistan problem or Srinagar problem is not a problem which has been going on for 1,500 years.
Yes.
There are facts and figures, and the historical perspective has to be clear as to how the Pakistan and India are still having a legacy of the boundary being undivided and left in a lurch by the Britishers and the BS of USA. So these are the issues which people have to understand. And we do not accept if there is some solution is round the corner between India and Pakistan, it is not going to be a third party mediation. It is between India and Pakistan. This has to be made clear. Now coming to the Ukraine question which you have asked me, my take on the whole issue is that in such matter, these are serious issues. Russia-Ukraine conflict is not a one-day affair. It has been building up over the years since 2004. People talk about 2014 and thereafter. I am taking them back in time. But even prior to that, 9th of February 1990, when James Baker came and had one-on-one dialogue with Mikhail Gorbachev and assured Mikhail Gorbachev that the sphere, not the sphere of influence, the expansion of NATO sphere of influence will not expand by an inch even to the east of East Germany then and the eastern boundary of Europe. So therefore, to say at that point in time, there are 16 member states with NATO, and now when you and me are discussing on the channel, there are 32 members, including some of the nation states which belong to the erstwhile USSR. So having said that, the only way I see is that there has to be some kind of a quiet diplomacy. Everything may not be there on the media, and flip-flop decisions are actually putting the entire world into a quandary. Today you are giving tomahawk, tomorrow you are cancelling. Zelensky is in a quandary. He's into a kind of a hallucination stage. So therefore, what I would recommend is what I have often said in your channel, that as is, where is basis, which Donald Trump was heard saying yesterday, that wherever one is, you bring a ceasefire there itself. And then I recommend that they should fall back by at least 5 to 10 kilometers to a respective side. Or neutral force has to be there under the UN, and a boundary, a line has to be defined, which has to be respected. There has to be a buffer zone between both the parties, and no firing. The freeze on firing has to actually be ensured in respect of all the guns and machines. That is the way to go about. If we start going to the press and start giving issues which cannot be implemented, they are fraught with very, very serious limitations and implications. I am afraid this Russia-Ukraine war, Budapest or no Budapest, you may have number of Alaskas, but yet during Donald Trump, another 3.5 years are left. Time will just fly. Donald Trump will go, somebody else will come, and he would have been put behind the history of this legacy point by 4 more years. He will take time to understand. He will have different kinds of advisors. Today, advisors don't even know. They dare not go and advise Donald Trump that what he is talking about Srinagar or Jammu and Kashmir and Bangladesh, they are not issues of 1,500. They are issues of 75 or 77, at max 78 years.
Indeed,
he has
when
to
the Radcliffe
revise
line
his
was
history
drawn.
and only come out with practical solutions, not by going to the press. Back to you, please.
All right, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking some other crucial developments. US President Donald Trump has now reiterated his claim that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has vowed to restrict his nation's purchases of Russian oil. This comes as he's made contradictory claims of now slapping higher tariffs and stating that India must, in fact, pay continue to pay tariffs if it does not restrict its purchases of Russian oil. Meanwhile, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs has placed on record that Prime Minister Modi has had no such conversation with the American president. Speaking about the situation, Trump stated that India will continue paying massive tariffs if they don't stop buying Russian oil.
With Prime Minister Modi of India, and he said he's not going to be doing the Russian oil thing, so that's it.
But why would India say that they're not going to?
I don't know, but if they want to say that, then they'll just continue to pay massive tariffs, and they don't want to do that.
Shifting focus to more developments, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has stated that US President Donald Trump is being fooled by advisors in announcing an end to US aid to his country. Meanwhile, Trump has stated that he would raise tariffs on Colombia and stop all payments to the South American nation, escalating a feud that stems from the US military strikes on vessels allegedly transporting drugs in the region. Earlier, Trump called Petro an illegal drug leader, while the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that U.S. forces attacked a vessel associated with a Colombian rebel group. Petro responded by saying that the boat belonged to a humble family, not a rebel group, and called Trump's remarks as offensive. Still with us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakar Ji, international affairs expert. Interesting developments coming in from Latin America. Was it Petro's remarks on Venezuela, his concerns with regards to the increased military deployment by the US forces in the Caribbean prompt all of this? And in your assessment, if this continues, could it spill over to other Latin American countries as well?
I'll take Pia. Good. I'm glad that you raised the point regarding this. But prior to that, you alluded to the oil that Narendra Modi has assured Donald Trump to put a stop to the buying of oil with Russia. You see, it's very unfortunate that the president, a respected president of USA superpower, is resorting to such kind of unestablished kind of communications. These are very detrimental to the growth story of USA. It is actually eroding his credibility. I am a great admirer of Donald Trump, the way he has campaigned in his elections. He has come back 2.0, but it is highly disheartening. He must make corrections. That's not the way to actually rule the world or govern ensure some kind of geopolitical stability in the world order, where diplomacy dialogue can be actually resorted to. You cannot coerce and start putting people on the pressure. Now, coming to the second point that you were alluding to, Colombo. Now, the issue here is it is to be understood that the Latin America or the South America, unfortunately, during Cold War, while it came under the dominance and the sphere of influence of USA, where we had bipolar world. And post disintegration of USSR, the Latin America has started experiencing and witnessing the sphere of influence of China coming into their zone and their subcontinent. And therefore, what I would assess to say is that the sphere of influence of China has actually penetrated into the way of life of Venezuela, Colombia, or name any country for that matter, Argentina, Peru, Chile, all these countries. So that is making actually, putting the entire North America under a state of discomfort. It is too close to be ignored by America. Therefore, Donald Trump, in his wisdom, has taken a decision. Even he's getting his armed forces ready with boots on ground to go in and invade Venezuela. I think, as per my assessment, his aim is to ensure regime change. And he would like to gradually build up the same narrative and apply it in Colombia, so that the leadership in Colombia is also subjected to similar kind of regime change, which unfortunately is being propelled and being developed under the name of narcotic trades and such like activities which are not as per the rules-based order. So therefore, the whole story is because of change of sphere of influence of the Latin America having come under China. Russia's presence is also being reported. Yesterday, one report came that the Hezbollahs have been reported to be present in Venezuela. So that changes the dynamics of the global order. Where is Hezbollah? That is in Middle East. From Middle East to this place means Iran's footprint and involvement is also being reported. Therefore, the Latin America is coming under the influence of China, Russia, and Iran, and which is going to put America in a state of absolute discomfort. So, therefore, America, rather than resorting to the methods of coercion and putting countries under pressure and giving such kind of false narrative, it is better they go in for deep meanings, silent dialogue with these affected countries and bring about some change and acceptance of the philosophy of America under the circumstances. Back to you, Pia.
Thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to further developments. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has now announced that U.S. forces struck an alleged drug smuggling vessel last Friday, killing 3 individuals. The strike marks the 7th such attack since last month. Now, according to Hegseth, the said vessel was traveling along a known narco-trafficking route and carried significant amount of narcotics. Hegseth has also explained that the vessel was linked to a Colombian guerrilla group, which is designated as a terrorist organization by the United States of America. Additionally, he stressed that the strike took place in international waters within the U.S. Southern Command's area of responsibility, which includes the Caribbean Sea. Now, in response to these strikes, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has commented that the handling of survivors depends on circumstances and coordination with allies, particularly those in the Americas and the Caribbean. He's also added that the main focus now is to destroy these boats and prevent narcotics from entering U.S. territory. Listen in.
Focus is obviously to blow up these boats that have narcotics on them, and we're extremely confident that when we take out one of these boats, it's a boat that would have really terrible poison that would kill tens of thousands of Americans. When these actual boats get blown up, sometimes there are survivors, and I think the Secretary of State just makes a decision depending on what the scenario is, whether we're going to send them back home, whether we're going to prosecute them in the United States, or whether we're going to work with allies to bring them to justice. But we're certain these guys are narco-terrorists. What we do with them from there, just as with any other conflict, depends on the realities on the ground.
Shifting focus to news coming in from France. A professional daylight heist unfolded at the Louvre Museum in Paris. Thieves made a brazen escape with 8 priceless pieces of French crown jewels, including a necklace gifted by Napoleon to his wife. The stolen jewels are said to be of inestimable heritage value. The looters targeted the Apollon Gallery, home to historic crowns and diamonds. Meanwhile, police believe that the thieves used power tools to break in, with the raid taking just 7 minutes. Despite alarms sounding and security guards intervening, the thieves managed to escape. French authorities are now tracking 4 suspects who fled the scene in a truck. President Macron has condemned the theft, calling it an attack on France's history and promising to recover the stolen artifacts. The Louvre shut down for the day as police launched an investigation. Let's have a look at what a prosecutor and a staff member had to say.
Ce camion nacelle arrive sur les lieux 9h30. 9h34, il y a la pénétration dans la galerie et quelques minutes, 6-7 minutes après, c'est la sortie de cette galerie et le départ des 4 malfaiteurs. Il y a eu au total 9 objets qui ont été ciblés par les malfaiteurs et 8 ont été effectivement dérobés.
Alors les agents du Louvre dont je suis sont à la fois extrêmement tristes et extrêmement en colère de ce qui s'est passé aujourd'hui. Extrêmement tristes parce que évidemment nous c'est notre métier de protéger ce bâtiment, cette institution, les collections qu'il abrite et le public qui le visite. Et de fait aujourd'hui il n'a pas été protégé comme on l'aurait voulu. Des alertes sont lancées depuis des mois et des mois par l'ensemble des personnels de sûreté et de sécurité notamment pour indiquer les failles et les problématiques auxquelles on était confrontés quotidiennement. Et en fait, la direction n'a absolument pas entendu toutes ces alertes. Et aujourd'hui, ce qu'on craignait est advenu, à savoir un pillage et un saccage.
With that, viewers, it's a wrap on the World Report. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.